right, Joan, here we are again.
Here we are.
Been spending quite some time together with you, but first in the coffee farms of Kericho,
Yeah.
now also here at the roastery,
Yeah.
and you had the pleasure of showing me my first coffee farm.
I did. It was so much fun.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Seeing it for the first time, I actually just thought that we were going out there to document the journey of the coffee and showing people home in Denmark
Yeah.
what processes it goes through. But that was not all that we did, because visiting those farms really gave me so much more perspective to what it is that African coffee roasters is actually doing locally with the farmers,
Yeah.
and everything that happens before the coffee reaches you here at the roastery. And what was kind of hard for me was taking all this new information and delivering it to everyone back home in Denmark so that they can understand the real challenges
Yeah.
that the coffee farmers, especially here in Kenya,
Yeah.
are facing,
Yeah.
because that is what the Trace Kenya project is all about.
Exactly.
But just to do a short introduction of who you are, you can do it better than I can, but Joan is Compliance and Sustainability Manager and
Yeah.
has been working together with the farmers in a cross field of how African coffee roasters operates, but also what happens down at the farm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you've been a part of African coffee roasters since the get-go. The first
Very
employee.
exciting. Very exciting. I was just thinking about it today morning, and I would describe my engagement with African coffee roasters really as a time of my life, really. And I have been in the field of sustainability for 16 years. This is my 16th year working with social impact, environmental impact, governance, and African coffee roasters really has been quite a journey, and almost, I would say, the hallmark of my career. And yeah, so when we started as a project, the Coffee for a Better Future project, we had no idea that it would end up in this beautiful establishment here called African Coffee Roasters, or that we would be revolutionizing how coffee trade is done in Kenya and exporting roast coffee from Kenya to Europe. And as I have told you severally, and I keep telling everyone this story, every time we told everyone that we're making a coffee roastery from Africa to export coffee to Europe, the first statement was, but you can't do that. It cannot be done. And we would tell them, we are doing it and it can be done. And 6 years later, we're doing it. And it's quite exciting, to say the least. Yeah.
It definitely is. I can sign on to that.
Yeah.
But I want everyone out there also to know how you guys do it differently. One thing is roasting the coffee here
Yeah.
in Kenya.
Yeah.
It obviously has some advantages, but also some challenges.
Yeah.
And going up to Kericho as part of the Trace Kenya project really, as I said, brought perspective into what it is you're doing.
Yeah.
But I think that you can introduce the Trace Kenya project better than I can. So what is it all about, and why is it important as of right now?
Yeah. So our mission as African coffee roasters really is to improve the lives of coffee producers in Eastern Africa. That is the sole reason for our existence. And we are doing that, and we pledge to do that every day by increasing the efficiencies in the coffee value chain. One, how do we increase the efficiencies in the coffee value chain? By being at a country of origin, by being close to the farmer, and therefore we can dialogue and innovate with the farmer, and we can demystify the business of coffee to a coffee producer. Because in my experience in the coffee sector, the coffee producer is really misinformed. And by the time information gets to the coffee producer, it has been tweaked and changed so much, or it's very little for the coffee producer to be able to make any meaningful decision or an informed decision. So our premise of existing in a country of origin is, one, to change that narrative and to inform the coffee producer better. But also, secondly, to drive innovation. And that is what has born the Trace Kenya project. Because when we were formed here in Kenya, our assumption was that we would be exporting 50% of coffee from Kenya as roast and 50% from the rest of Eastern Africa. But based on our business model, we produce based on orders. We don't push products to the market, but the market pulls products from us. And we get customers to come and tell us what they want us to make for them. And increasingly, they would come and certifications would be the first thing. And increasingly, organic certification would be the first thing they would ask for. Almost a hygiene factor, we came to realize. It's no longer a novelty that you have organic certified coffee or milk or vegetables. It was almost a hygiene factor for all our customers. And for that reason, coffee from Kenya was falling off the table. As I tell my farmers every time I go to them, coffee from Kenya was falling off the table. It was not up for discussion or negotiation anymore. It doesn't matter how beautiful the blackberry notes are or how much they're singing. It was just falling off the table. And we saw this as a missed opportunity. How can we change this? How can we innovate and bring the Kenyan coffee farmer back to the table? And that's when we started conceptualizing organic coffee farmed from Kenya. Organic certified, very key, organic certified, because you will find many producers, and not just for coffee, who will tell you, I farm my coffee or my macadamia or my cabbage organically. But is it certified? Do you have that third-party verification? And that's what you're missing in the coffee sector in Kenya. And increasingly, as I did my research, and I'm sure you all know, everyone in the coffee sector knows, the Kenyan coffee's contribution of Kenyan coffee to the global coffee sector is shrinking every single day. And my theory is one of the reasons why this is happening is because we're not keeping up with the trends. We're not keeping up with the global trends which are being demanded by the consumers. We have our neighboring countries who are doing very well in terms of that. And that's why as African coffee roasters, a lot of the organic coffees we get from Congo, we get from Rwanda, we get from Ethiopia. We don't have anything from Kenya. So how do we start getting up to speed to this? Get organic certified coffee. Get partners, because our expertise is in roasting and trading. Get partners whose expertise is in training the farmers to become organic certified. And that's how we partnered with Solidaridad and did the Trace Kenya project together. And we just launched it in September. And we're working in 3 counties in Kenya, Nandi, Bungoma, and Kericho, where we had initially started as African coffee roasters in Kericho, and we had partners with cooperatives. We had initiated direct trade between ourselves and those cooperatives. I think another reforming way of doing business in Kenya, where a cooperative actually, legally, cooperatives can sell their own coffee directly. But how many cooperatives in Kenya have the capacity and even have the knowledge that they can do that? It's one thing to know I can do it and decide I do not want to do it. It's another thing not to know altogether. And that is what has been there, as I mentioned, misinformation or very limited information so that I cannot make an informed decision. My decisions are very limited because of what I know. And we're changing that as African coffee roasters through Trace Kenya project, through our engagement with farmers here. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So the notion of organic coffee has, in the world I come from, not always been synonymous with best or high quality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Kenya has been at the forefront of some of the best coffees in the world.
Yeah.
But I've been talking to the specialty industry, who's also seen a decline in especially central Kenyan coffees throughout the last couple of years. So there are tendencies that goes to show that Kenyan is not keeping their top position in the market. And what I learned from this project was that there is a reason for it. And one of the reasons is the lack of organic farming, because they are depleting the soil. They are working against nature. They don't have the capabilities in the plant to withstand a lot of these different diseases that they had to fertilize against.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And what I've learned also in the Trace Kenya project is if we want to elevate the standards and the quality of Kenyan coffee, bringing it back to its former glory, they will have to convert into organic.
Yeah, they will have to. I mean, just early on this week, I participated in a conference call where one of the key concerns highlighted by one of the participants is trace elements of a certain pesticide which was found in Kenyan coffee. Now, that would not have been a problem had we been practicing organic farming. And secondly, I would say it's the we have to change how we're doing business because of climate change, whether we like it or not.
Exactly.
We have to change how we're doing business. And a sustainable way of changing how we're doing businesses is working with nature. Nature has changed from what we grew up with to something different. And we have to adapt very fast to this different nature that we have. And we have to change how we're doing the things. And that's where the organic farming project comes in. Because now we change our agronomic practices. We change how our inputs. We change how we look at the farm as a whole and not just as a coffee farm or my small chicken here or my goats here.
And coming down to African coffee roasters and realizing how much in tune and synergizing my own values around coffee is with African coffee roasters is just amazing. And I always look at the how, why, and the what.
Yeah.
And it's always hard to describe your why because it's a different center in your brain.
Yeah.
But I feel that African coffee roasters is the perfect example of how and what we are doing. And then to turn back to the why are we doing it? To help consumers drink better coffee and to give more money back to the farmer.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, if we are able to provide consumers with what they want, when they want it, at a fair price, which consumer would not be happy, including you and me? If I want a good cup of coffee, a fantastic cup of coffee, I would be willing to pay a fair price, not an exorbitant price, but the true value for that coffee. I would be willing to pay the true value for that coffee. And if the farmer can get true value for his input into producing that fantastic coffee, excellent. If these two people are happy, the system rolls.
Yeah.
The system just keeps rolling. The minute one party of these two is not happy, then the system starts shaking. Because the consumer will stop buying, this farmer will be producing without a market, or will be producing and feeling cheated that they're putting so much effort and they're not getting commensurate returns for what they're putting in.
So now I'm thinking about quality as well. And that is something that I learned coming down here, visiting the farms.
Yeah.
Because coffee can be so many different things.
Yeah.
There are consumer coffee, there are specialty coffee, and there's everything in between.
Yeah.
And we want to keep all of that in between as well, because coffee can taste very different depending on the processes on the farm, the quality it's been going through. And what I learned out of the farm is that, and that's basic knowledge, and you can just use your sense, because nature is going to produce different outputs.
Yeah.
And you can elevate the qualities coming out from the farm, but there are always going to be different outputs. Some is going to be really good, some is going to be less good, and some will be even lesser than that. But there is a lot of coffee companies working with the lowest denominator, just trying to buy the cheapest coffee they can buy and make it sound better than it is.
That's wrong.
And the beautiful thing about African coffee roasters is that the position that you are in with the customers you are caring for, here I'm thinking about Co-op and the different lines in both Irma production and in Circle specialty and everything in between. You are able to not only source the best quality from the farmers, but also the lower quality.
Yeah.
And there is a coffee for any occasion.
Yeah.
And for my morning coffee, it's just got to work.
Yeah.
And sometimes I need something that has a little bit more complexity and flavor to it. And I think a lot of people are the same way.
Yeah.
But you can buy the coffees from African coffee roasters and from Co-op, because you can have any quality and know that the work that you are doing down here is thinking holistically about what output is coming out from the farm.
Exactly.
Because they have the P1, the P2s, and the P light.
Exactly.
And you can help them elevate that quality, but there's always going to be different kinds.
Yeah.
So not just having a company that taken only the low grade, or a specialty coffee company that's only taken the high grade, but a company that is helping them elevate all of their quality and helping them in just buying all that they produce.
And I am sure you've had that conversation with my colleagues, because again, we have to change how information flows back to the farmer. And the farmer has to start viewing the consumer of the coffee in the cup as the consumer for their coffee. And not the trader or the roaster, but this guy who goes to a coffee shop or who buys their morning coffee their coffee to take home from a retail store. that's their customer. They have to start thinking of that customer. Because the minute they start thinking of that customer, their perception of quality starts changing. And it's not just about the grading system in Kenya, which is one indicator of quality, but also the cup quality. What do I want in the morning? What do I want in the late afternoon when I need something to pick me up? You know, one. And just now, today morning, I was discussing with my colleague because we are very fortunate in that last year we worked with 2 cooperatives from Kericho, as I mentioned earlier, and we bought all their coffee, all their coffee, all their coffee. And as you have said, we had a place for each of the coffee, from the low grades to the fantastic grades. We had a home for each of their coffee. We had a, and this speaks to the value creation activities which happen within the coffee value chain, okay? And the input of the farmer in these value creation activities, because the farmer is not exposed to where the value is, and therefore where can I tap into this value? The only value that they're exposed to is the value on the farm, which is very important. But because of the way the market is structured, it is market driven, it is driven from the north, it is driven by what the consumers want. A lot of the value creation activities happen in the north, which get a bigger percentage of the value within the coffee value chain. Because of all those many factors, the coffee farmer ends up being the one who gets the least in terms of returns, and all these other people getting a bit more. Now, one, I have to say very clearly that all these activities have value, but can the coffee farmer start creating some of this value? And the only way that question can be answered is if they understand that value themselves first. They get exposed to that value for them to be able to measure, is this something which we can do as coffee farmers? And where can we add value to identify opportunities and gaps that they can add value to? Now, early next year, we will have all the coffee farmers from the Trace Kenya project, well, representatives of the coffee farmers from the Trace Kenya project visit our facility here so that they can see when their coffee is picked, has been wet milled, has been dry milled, has been graded, and it is clean when it comes here or when it goes to any other roaster. What are these value adding opportunities, activities they keep hearing about which make the coffee expensive? Then we start opening their eyes and they start getting all this information firsthand, and they start identifying opportunities where they can innovate, create, change processes, activities, and we change how coffee business is done. Okay?
It's very interesting because I've always thought about this flow of information towards the consumer so that they can create a better experience for themselves, but it actually goes both ways.
Exactly.
And what this might be able to, when it hit the great internet and everyone is being more aware of this story, we can use it both to educate the consumers but also the farmers.
Yeah.
Because I actually saw this morning a post you linked on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
with a quote from Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
And I'm very fond of Stephen Covey, and he has one of his 7 habits is seek first to understand.
Yeah.
And that goes for the consumer in Denmark when they are buying the product off the shelves.
Yeah.
But it also goes the other way around.
Exactly. Exactly. The coffee farmer has to understand. And unfortunately, or fortunately, or that is a situation that is there, coffee is very colonial in Kenya.
Yeah.
And it is very political also. So because of the history of coffee in Kenya, there has been a lot of misinformation, twisted information, like the farmer doesn't even know left from right, or what is the center, what is true anymore, what is not true anymore. One, and the farmer doesn't get his voice heard as often as he should. He is the producer. If there's anyone to tell the story of a producer, it should be the producer, and not someone seated far from the producer. Yeah, which is why we're trying to bring them closer, trying to open their mindsets in relation to the coffee value chain, because then we're able to innovate together. They're able to see what the customer wants and the potential on their farms and innovate. A good example is natural processing in Kenya. Traditionally, we do wet processing in Kenya. We do wet processing, that's all we know. If I'm processing coffee, it is wet. Is there any other way? Like if I'm processing coffee, it is wet. What else is there to do?
Exactly.
But there are so many other methods of processing coffee.
Yeah.
And then we start throwing these methods at the farmers and telling them, if you do this, a customer is willing to pay this much for natural processed coffee. Just throwing these ideas and exposing the farmers to different possibilities that can exist within the coffee value chain that they can tap into and get value for their returns. Yeah. And as I was mentioning earlier, if we don't change the way we're doing business in the coffee sector, not just in Kenya, globally, we're not going to have coffee a few hundred years from now, especially Arabica coffee. And certainly in coffee, coffee will no longer be something to talk about in terms of contribution to the national GDP if we don't change how we're doing business here. If we don't change the coffee sector, certainly, I'm 100% sure, will die. Because the traditional coffee growing regions, first, there are so many competing land uses in those regions in relation to what is going to give you returns. Two, because of the way we have traditionally farmed coffee and so many other crops, our soils are dead. In fact, the other day an agronomist was asking me, when was the last time you saw an earthworm in the soil? Just dig here where we are seated right now. Where are the earthworms? What happened to the earthworms? It's because of our practices. And then there's nothing to break down the natural things which are in the soil, all these leaves which are falling down. There's nothing to break it down. And consequently, the soils are dying. We don't have enough water. The climate is changing. All these factors combined are forcing us to change how we are farming. And therefore, Trace Kenya happened. And we really, really have to embrace Trace Kenya. We really have to embrace organic coffee farming if we really want to have competitive coffee sector. Within the region, Uganda is doing very well. Rwanda is doing excellent. Tanzania is doing significantly well. What happened to Kenya? What happened to Kenya, where we already have a coffee brand? I mean, if you go anywhere in all these coffee drinking countries and you mention Kenyan coffee, you don't struggle to sell the Kenyan coffee. It already has a name for itself. So why are we not leveraging on this brand and adapting to the times that are there? You know?
Now we are.
Now we are.
And when can everyone back home expect to have an organic coffee sitting on the shelves in the stores?
Whoa!
Ooh, putting you on the spot.
Before COVID, I would have confidently answered that question. Q4 2020.
Yeah.
I would have confidently answered that question. However, 2020 was the year that is. We all know what has happened in 2020. It has taught us very many things. And for that reason, a good number of our farmers training activities were pushed back because we really could not congregate as we had planned to congregate. We couldn't have all the farmer training, all the testing, all the assessments happening. But we're really looking forward to 2021 and see how much catch-up we can do in 2021, particularly now that we're already testing vaccines. In the UK, I heard they're already testing their vaccine. So we're really looking forward to 2021 and see what we can come up with. So I will be hesitant to give you a specific date, just to let you know, be on the lookout. We're getting organic certified Kenyan coffee sooner rather than later. Yeah.
And then I will sign on to making sure that people will know
Fantastic.
that there is going to come organic coffee from Kenya and it's going to taste amazing.
Yep.
So as long as you'll make it happen, I'll make sure that everyone out there is getting the chance to taste it.
Yep. And it's gonna happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I want to say thank you so much for one, bringing me to the farms, teaching me so many new things, and inviting me onto this journey, because this is not going to be the last time that I visit Kenya.
Good.
Or Kericho,
Yeah.
or the Trace Kenya project,
Yeah.
because there is so much more to be done, and I know that there is a lot of people in the industry and at home that would want to be part of the solution instead of being part of the problem, as long as they know why.
You're most welcome. The pleasure was all mine. I had so much fun in Kericho with you. I mean,
It was an adventure.
It was an adventure. It was one of my best trips to Kericho, I must say.
We got to do it again then.
We have to.
We'll bring Kevin at least.
Yeah, we have to. We have to.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Again.
Thank you.
And everyone out there, thank you for watching.